Hi guys, welcome back. I'm bringing you another video on the legality of knives in the UK and some interesting news that cropped up late last month from the NPCC, and that's the National Police Chiefs Council. So, as some of you will be aware, I've done a couple of videos in the past recording the difficulties that many of us have in perfectly legitimately buying knives and in fact any bladed objects here in the UK, largely thanks to a huge swathe of gang-related knife crime that's occurring in the inner cities. And instead of actually dealing with that knife crime directly and having some pretty strong law that addresses the type of people that are carrying that out, they would rather just implement a sort of blanket ban on everyone, including many of us who legitimately have reasons to use knives. After all, they're probably the most widely used tool in the entire world. Everyone, every day, pretty much uses a knife of some kind. So to demonise them like that, being that they're inanimate objects that are also very, very useful to us, seems kind of crazy. I think it's the standard approach that we see in the UK and probably in the US as well to a lot of these issues, that instead of actually dealing with the complex, costly and arduous task of actually taking these criminals on directly, what we see is a bunch of legislation coming out that just kind of placates the public. So what's the latest news? So this article came out, published by the NPCC, and it basically details that they recognise that there are a number of types of knives that are widely available that can be purchased, whether it be in shops, but mainly their concern is on the internet. And that these types of knives, they're very unhappy about that people can buy. And they are basically suggesting they are going to work with the post office and they are going to work with, courier companies, and that they will be examining all these different parcels, scanning them for possible knives or bladed objects inside. And if they are found to have them, they will be unwrapped, examined. And if they are found to be a legal thing for you to own, you would imagine at that point that they would then just wrap it all back up and send it to you. And that I don't particularly have a problem with. I think that's been happening for many, many years in this country. We all pretty much know that if you send things through the postal service, there's a fair chance that someone's going to check that and ascertain whether you're sending something illegal, whether it be drugs or weapons or, it could be anything. So that's fair enough. I haven't got any issue with that. You can scan all my posts, that's no problem. But it goes a little bit further, and it basically notes that they're very unhappy that people are buying perfectly legal knives for themselves. They don't feel that people have legitimate reasons for buying these things. I'll go through the exact wording in a minute. And so they are going to make a threat that they're going to let the people know that they know who they are, and they are going to send everyone a letter that addresses why or why not the person may have a knife, and it kind of pushes them to seek some kind of help for the fact that they've bought a knife. So let's go through the wording. You'll have to excuse me because I'm going to read it off of here. Operation Sector is focused on the online sale of knives and looking at opportunities where we can limit the supply. As part of this, we have a strong partnership with Border Force under Operation Uchi. That's Uchee. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, or Uchi, which is a process that manages the interception of packages of illegal weapons imported into the UK. Border Force will scan parcels arriving at Royal Mail's distribution centre in West London, and any which appear to be weapons are opened and examined. Should the weapon be illegal, it will be seized and the recipient reported to their respective police force. If the weapon is not illegal, it will be repackaged and sent on. While carrying a knife in public without a legitimate purpose is illegal, many knives can be owned and kept at home legally. This is where we have some concerns. So really they shouldn't have concerns because they are perfectly legal for people to buy. That's almost akin to having a concern that someone is buying a motor car and you then have some kind of futuristic concern as to whether they're going to use it to speed or to drink drive. Like, that's bizarre. You know, you should just accept that it's perfectly legal for someone to buy a certain object and they buy it, and no more is discussed. Many of the knives intercepted by Op-UG and viewed on our visit to Border Force this week are shockingly not illegal to own, despite them appearing to have no legitimate purpose. Many of the knives we saw were highly unlikely to be used to chop vegetables in a kitchen or to be part of a camping expedition, but nevertheless do not meet the criteria to be seized. I know that buying items online can feel anonymous, and I make no apologies for sending a very clear message, and this is absolutely not the case. Any parcel of knives intercepted through Op-UG that are found to be legal will be repackaged and sent on. Only now a letter from myself will also be included which demonstrates we know who the individuals purchasing these dangerous knives are. It advises them of the law around carrying a knife in public and signposts them to seek support and or surrender the weapon. This is important if they bought a knife because they think it will keep them safe. I'm not naive enough to think this letter will be a game changer, but even if it makes one person stop and think about their decision to carry, that should be one life saved. And that's one of my least favourite arguments that people use when they make these like sweeping blanket bans on things, and they say, hey, even if it saves one life, and you know, that's almost an admittance from them. Yeah, we know this is a pointless exercise, and we're going to, you know, get the public to get behind it by basically, you know, calling out this emotional thing that's completely unprovable of maybe we saved one life somewhere or another. And, you know, if you were that intent on saving a singular life somewhere, I'm sure there are better ways to do that than, you know, sending out random letters. Because let's be honest, the letters are going to fall into two categories. They're going to go to criminals who are not going to give a damn. They might be a bit concerned that the police have recorded their address. And then they're going to go to people that are legitimate collectors, users. And they go on to say, you know, they were mentioning these don't appear to have a legitimate use. Well, some people just collect knives. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a perfectly legal and legitimate thing to do. They seem to sort of want to cast some sort of shade and aspersion about that. I know when the officer came to my house when something was seized at Border Force, which also was a perfectly legal knife for me to possess, he was drawing some inference that, you know, well, you seem to have a lot of knives, like it made me into some kind of weird serial killer or something. And I said, well, yeah, I review them online. You know, I've collected them for years since I was young. I use them out in the woods and when we go camping, fishing, all kinds of things. You know, I've in many years, I've never harmed anyone with one. So that should really tell you all you need to know. If I've got that many and I've never used one to do anything nefarious, then you should probably be pretty confident I'm not about to do that now. So then it doesn't actually detail the wording on the letter, but I was able to find a screenshot of said letter. I'll throw that up, and it's got a sort of picture of a very large, cheap arse looking machete with it, you know, with the serrations all across the back. So this is the type of knife they are looking to ban in the new machete legislation that had been discussed. I don't think that's come to light yet, but exactly describing this kind of thing with the big serrations, massive blade, doesn't really appear to be of agricultural design. And if we zoom in on this letter, so it says, I am the senior police officer responsible for working to reduce knife crime. You are being contacted because you bought a knife through customs. Whilst this knife has been purchased legally, your local police are aware and they may contact you to talk about your reasons for doing so. So I've got issues there. You've bought something perfectly legally. You may now be contacted, i.e. harassed, by the police because you've bought a perfectly legal thing. This is not the correct way to, action police time. If the police really don't agree with the law as it stands, they should do what anyone else has to do, and that is petition for the law to be changed. If they don't like the current law, petition for it to be changed, and we all have to abide by the law. But it seems to me that they're saying here, we're not happy with the law as it stands, and we're not going to, abide by that. We are going to basically harass people in their own homes that have bought perfectly legal objects. Then it goes on to say, we realise there are various reasons why people buy or carry knives. If, while not at your home, you are found to have this weapon with you, you will be arrested. In many cases, carrying a knife can lead to a prison sentence or serious injury or death to you or someone you know. What you can do next. Calling Crime Stoppers, it goes on to give the number, about the support they can give you if you are feeling scared, pressurised or forced into carrying a knife. They can help you not become another victim of knife crime. If you're not ready yet to reach out, then please consider talking to someone you know, and whether it is a colleague at work, a relative or a friend who has your best interests at heart. Talking to someone you trust can help you avoid the serious consequences of being found carrying a weapon. You can also talk to a police officer by whichever means suits you best. You may feel this letter does not apply to you. I hope this message is received in the spirit with which it is intended, as in the wrong hands, knives are mercifully ruining far too many lives, and I ask your help to reduce the risk. So if that last part is absolutely heartfelt and true, then that's a fair enough statement. I don't agree that this policy will work at all. I just don't think that any criminals would care about it. I think if you were that frightened that you had bought knives to protect yourself with, you probably already know that that's not a good idea. You probably already know that it's breaking the law when you take them outside the house. I would imagine most people have that already, down. So if they've already made that decision, I don't think a random generic letter from the police is going to particularly change their minds. They're obviously either very frightened or they're very criminal, one way or the other. Or they're legitimate people who have no illegitimate intentions with that thing, and they're just going to find this a pointless waste of time. And if you're like me, you're probably not very happy about being stuck on a register somewhere, because the trouble is those registers don't take into account, as it mentions in the end of that letter, oh, if you're a legitimate user, take this in the spirit it's intended. I know from previous experience that if your name gets entered into a police computer somewhere, that's never looked upon in a sort of unbiased manner. If you're listed with a bunch of people have ordered knives, then that's like a list of suspects. So if someone gets stabbed in your local area, you're probably going to receive a knock at the door. It's that kind of list. They don't keep those lists for fun. They don't kind of mark down on the list and say, oh, we think that guy's nice and that guy's a bit mean. You're just thrown in with all the other people. And why would they keep that list in the first place? Why on earth would they record those details? It's obviously for their own use, and they're going to be, using that in the future if they so need to. So this isn't, a law. It's not new law or anything like that. It's perfectly legitimate for the police to be able to send out letters en masse if they so wish. It's a huge waste of taxpayers' money, of course, but I doubt if anyone really cares about that. And I'm sure most of the members of the public will be on board saying, oh, great, the police are doing everything they can to fight knife crime. From where I'm sitting, a good way of fighting knife crime would be to be actively putting coppers into the houses and the areas where this stuff's going on in the middle of these estates, where there's pretty much open air drug dealing 24/7. We've all seen it. I've been through these estates and witnessed it myself. I've been through estates in Bradford that are pretty much no-go areas. And, you know, there was literally lines of traffic just queuing up for what was like a wholesale open drug operation in the street. And at one point, those guys that were running that, I was actually conducting surveillance there at the time, and they pulled me out of a car, and basically this gang, you know, were all armed with knives and a couple with other things. They thought I was the police, and they were having a chat about whether they were going to kill me or not. Luckily that day they didn't, and I was able to get in the car and drive away. But that's the kind of thing that needs to be addressed and is not being addressed. I'd like to thank one of the viewers, George, for emailing this news into me. It wasn't something that I picked up. George saw this, emailed it in, emailed the link. I'll stick a link to the bottom here. If you're going to make comments, guys, keep them mature. I want to keep the comments open on these type of threads, but what tends to happen is you get all these kind of extremists that start saying crazy stuff. And, you know, if you're calling for violence on the internet, that's probably already against the law, so you're incriminating yourself. I've had people incriminating themselves by saying, you know, I don't care what the laws are, I'll keep any knives I want and I'll carry all sorts of knives around with me. I don't want that kind of comment on here. We're a law-abiding channel, so I will delete comments. If they get too many, guys, I have a full-time job. I'm a busy guy. I'm trying to do this, you know, and put some good content out. But I don't have all week to sit there in my mum's spare room and root through adults' comments to see which are mature and which are not. At the end of the day, if I get too many, I'll just clear the comment section out. There won't be a comment section. And people say, oh, he's, you know, that's not good. It's censorship. Yeah, it boils down to my time. Like I said, this isn't my full-time job. I do this at the weekends. And, you know, I don't have time. It's simple as that. And there have been cases of people being prosecuted in the past for allowing their YouTube channels or their websites to be used for extremist comments. I legally have a responsibility to ensure this channel isn't used by extremists to publicise that kind of material or to be putting anything that's illegal in the comments. So whilst I get that this is a, you know, emotive subject that's going to drive some sort of polarizing views, there will be some that think that this is a legitimate and good thing that the police are doing. There'll be other people that are more like me that think it's possibly a waste of time and are concerned about their privacy. Either way, there's a way to discuss that without being rude or vulgar or using swear words or encouraging criminal behavior. So thanks a lot, guys. Comment below. Take a look at the article below, and have a great weekend.